Hello. All right. Can you see me? All right. I have to turn. This is going to be difficult. I haven't done this with my phone yet, so is this gonna work? Oh, just a moment. Didn't work the other way, so I'm gonna have to do it like this. Right. This is different from what I'm used to. Let's see. Hello, good evening or good morning, depending on where you are. I seriously hope this is actually working. So I can see that there is someone here. So hello, thank you for being here. Thank you for your patience. It looks like it's finally going to work in some way. Yeah, I'll just give it a couple of seconds. I am looking at, let's see if you can hear me. I'll just have to check. Hi, Conrad. Hello. Thank you for being here. That's great. I assume you can hear me. Yeah, good. The sound is on. Finally, it's working. Oh, my goodness. So, I am going to just start since this is the time. So happy to see someone here. Great, Conrad. It might be just you and me now, but we can snacka svenska, tala svenska. Well, all right. I'm gonna start reading. All right. Great. So happy that someone actually could be bothered to join in, even though there has been so many problems. Now, where I left off the last time was with, well, I started reading chapter 2, and I read chapter 2.1 and chapter 2.2. So now I'm going to read from chapter 2.3, the 9 within the wood. I'll begin there, and after a while I'm gonna see if you have any questions. So, okay, enjoy. So, chapter 2.3, the 9 within the wood. We will move on to the next lines in stanza 2 of the Völuspå poem in order to explore exactly what the cosmic Völva remembers happening before time itself. And I read from the Völuspå. Nio manek heima, nio ividi, mjöt vid märan, för mold nedan. And my translation: 9 worlds I remember, 9 witches within wood, before the mead tree sprouted from the ground below. Now, at that time, I believe, when I wrote this, I believe that mjötvid was mjödvider, which meant mead tree. Apparently, mjöt, with a T instead of a D, is not a mead, so this might be wrong. It's probably, the mjöt means a measure, like something you measure out. So it's a, in Norwegian, since there is a Swede here, I'll say utmålingstre, like the measuring tree. So 9 worlds I remember, 9 witches within wood, before the measuring tree sprouted from the ground below. The incredibly ancient Völva remembers 9 worlds before the present, and she clearly identifies these worlds as ividi, a plural form of the feminine noun ividja, which refers to either a sorceress or witch, such as the Völva herself, or to a giantess. The Völva may very well also be a giantess, as she was fostered among these primeval entities. There is a strong suggestion in these lines which points to a concept of crafty witch giantesses actually embodying worlds. The name for giantess or sorceress that is used, ividja, literally translates as within wood, from I, which means within or inside, and vidya, which means wood or tree or forest. The wood refers to the matter that makes up a tree, and the tree here is a symbol of the world, the universe, a connection that is clearly shown in the last line. Thus, the giantesses or witches, or both, are beings that reside within the matter that makes up a world, a universe. In the previous section, I mentioned that the physical universe, symbolized by the body of the giant Ymir, represented the original masculine element in the cosmos. This was nourished by a mysterious power of abundant nourishment and creative movement, the original cosmic female element, the instigator of all fate. When we now hear of female within woods, ividi, we must bear in mind that the wood is a symbol of the physical body, in this case the body of the universe, and that the lines reveal that the unseen female element within resides within the seen male element. She is the invisible, animating and nourishing power within the physical form. The 9 worlds that existed before the present mead tree or measuring tree would mean that we have 9 male trees, world trees, and 9 female within trees. The latter being imagined as crafty giant witches who propel the expanding life and fate of the tree that they inhabit. These within wood giantesses have apparently, like immortal souls, survived the physical bodies of the previous universes and now come together to create our present universe, as we learn from 2 different Edda sources. In his Gylfaginning, Snorri Sturluson claimed that Heimdallr, whose name can be translated as the Great World, and who therefore is a representation of the universe and the world tree, well, he was born by 9 mothers, 9 giantess mothers. To support his claims, Snorri quotes from an otherwise lost Edda poem titled Heimdalargalder, the charm or the spell song of the great world. In this charm, Great World himself reveals that he has been born by 9 sisters. 9 mek mædramøgur, 9 mek systrasoner. Of 9 mothers I am a child, of 9 sisters I am son. The Edda poem Hyndluljóð, the song of the she-wolf, also supports this concept. In stanza 35 we read: Vard ein borin I årdaga, ram aukin mjøk, ugna kinder. 9 bardan, nad gaufkan man, jötna möjar vid jardartraum. One was born in the days before time, immensely powerful, of the ruling lineages. 9 women gave birth to the magnificent man, giant maidens at the earth's edge. These predecessors and mothers of the present universe are named in stanza 37. Han gjalp umbar, han greip umbar, bar han Eistla och Öyrgjafa, han bar Ulfrun och Angöja, Imder och Atla och Jarnsaxa. And I translate. The howling one bore him, the grasping one bore him, the achiever bore him, and the giver of wealth. Wolfrun bore him, and Pleasure Island, She-Wolf and Intender, and Iron Scissors. Some of the names of the universal mothers appear in other poetical sources, such as when the feeling of courage is called Jarnsaxa's wind in a skaldic poem. But as usual, the names of mythical entities in a particular poem serve only to describe some important aspects of these in one particular context, and we must assume that they can show up with different names in other places. In order to identify the giantesses, we must think of the 9 maidens or the 9 mothers as a mythical and poetical formula, and see where else we find such a formula. The daughters of the ocean. So the formula of the 9 giantesses is repeated by Snorri in his description of the Ægisdøtra, the daughters of the ocean. Ægir may mean ocean, but the direct translation is the terrifying one, the awe-inspiring one. And this is usually thought of as the giant lord of the sea. According to Snorri, other names for Ægir are Hler, which means wind shielded, like in modern Norwegian is le or ly, a place that is shielded from the wind. And another name for him is Gymir, which means hiding, as in hiding something. He lives on Lesøy, which means the wind-shielded island, and is married to Rån, whose name means robbery. She's also described as his daughter. Rån is an ancient giantess of the ocean who owns a net with which she fishes the drowned people. These people who drowned supposedly came to feast and make love in Rån's and her daughter's mead halls and beds at death. Rån is a giantess, but is also listed among the goddesses, the Åsynjur of Åsgard. Her daughters aid their mother in catching men at sea in order to bring them down to her realm. Snorri lists the names of the daughters of the ocean. We have Ynglinga, the heavenly shining one, and Blodughadda, the bloody-haired one, Hefring, the rising one, and then we have Dufa, Udr, Hrönn, Bylgja, Bora. All these describe different kinds of ocean waves. And we have Kolga, the cold one. You know, you heard about the Inuit people of Greenland having more than 40 words for snow. Well, in Norwegian, we also have lots and lots of words for snow. And back then, when people used to see a lot, they obviously had a lot of different words for waves, different kinds of waves, streams, currents, and they were all personified. They were all the names of giantesses that lived within these waves and currents and streams. That's animism. Now, according to Snorri, and often confirmed by other Norse sources, these giantesses are embodied in the waves of the ocean. However, as Snorri himself points out, and which is verified by Skaldic and Edda poetry, these ladies have many names. In Snorri's Skaldskaparmál, we hear how the 9 daughters of the ocean are synonymous with the mysterious red gold that seems to represent divine knowledge in the Eddas. So I'm going to read from the Skaldskaparmál in English this time. Wise gold, called the fire of Aegir, that is the fire of the ocean. The origin of this is this story. Aegir, as was told before, went as a guest to Åsgarder, and when he was about to return home, he invited Odin and all the Aesir to visit him after an interval of 3 months. Undertaking this journey were, first of all, Odin and Njörður, Freyr, Tyr, Bragi, Vidar, Loki, and then the Aesir, Frigg, Freyja, Gefjon, Skadi, Idun, Sif. Thor was not there. He was away in eastern parts, killing trolls. And when the gods had taken their places, Aegir had glowing gold brought into the middle of the hall, which illuminated and lit up the hall like fire. And this gold was used as light at his feast, just as in Valhall there had been glowing swords instead of fire. Ron is the name of Aegir's wife, and the names of their 9 daughters are as was written above. I read these names before. As at this feast everything served itself, both food and ale and all the utensils that were needed for the feast. Then the Aesir discovered that Ran had a net in which she caught everyone that went to sea. Everyone. So this is the story of the origin of gold being called the fire or the light or the brightness of Aegir or of Ran or of Aegir's daughters. And from such kennings the practice has now developed of calling gold fire of the sea and of all terms for the sea, since Aegir and Ran's names are also terms for sea, and hence gold is now called fire of lakes or rivers and of all river names. Complicated. In Snorri's account, the daughters of the ocean are clearly not only symbols of the waves, but also of rivers, of light, and of the divine red gold that appears to lead to wisdom and spiritual illumination. They provide the light of the gods in the hall of the ocean, a place of immortality. Aegir's hall is situated on the island called Hlesøy, which means the wind-shielded island. The wind is significantly a symbol of death in Norse poetry, so that we understand that a place which is breezeless, such as the grove of Barri, or wind-shielded, such as Aegir's island in the ocean, where his wife, Death, lurks? Well, these are places of immortality. The one and the many. The formula of 9 supernatural females is often repeated in Old Norse sources. When the first warrior fades, the Valkyriur appear in Völuspo stanza 30. They are, well, I've written here that they are 9 in number, but they're actually 6 in number. There is a reason why I wrote 9, because they usually appear in groups of 9. So they are ready to ride the earth. In the heroic Edda poems, Valkyriur ride the air and sea, and usually they are always in groups of 9 or 3 by 9. They are not only responsible for protecting and guiding their chosen hero, but also for bringing rays of light into the world and for causing the dew to fall in the valleys. They are always united under one head Valkyria who speaks for them all, just like the old English poem suggested when it said about the Valkyriur, "Low, loud were they, low, loud, riding over the hills. They were of one mind, riding over the land." As to the dew that falls in the valleys, this is mentioned elsewhere in Snorri's Gylfaginning. And here it is said that the dew that falls in the valleys of earth, it comes from the aur, the clay or the sand that exists in the well of origin, the Urdarbrunnur, where the Norns derive from. And the Valkyriur and the Norns, well, they are more or less 2 sides of the same coin. The Valkyriur are one particular type of Norn that follows her person through life. And she is the particular Norn for warriors, it seems. Now, in the Edda poem Fjölsvinnsmål, we are presented with a description of a court with a hall within Utgarder, which means the outer world. And this is the realm of the giants. The Utgarder, the outer world, is the same as Jotunheimr, for example, the world of the giants. The protective walls and guards of this court are described in very similar terms as those found within the realm of death in Niflhel, which means something like hiding in mist. But behind the hostile and dangerous walls is a bright realm with a hill called Lyfjaberg, the mountain of medicines, where the Mima-meider, the tree of memory, grows. The tree of memory is obviously another name for the universe tree. Beneath this tree sits a maiden dreaming by the name of Menglöd, invitation to blend. She is called the Tjodmæra, the great maiden, and she is said to rule the lands, the people, and the halls of Utgarder, the outer world. Such a soul-ruling queen of the giant world is otherwise not mentioned in Edda poetry, but is mentioned in the saga of Egil, Einhendi, and Åsmundr Berserkerbane, where she is called Queen Eaglebeak. She is dreaming beneath the tree, awaiting the return of her beloved, who has been gone for countless lifetimes. The image of a maiden ruling lands and people whilst weaving and dreaming in a secret chamber is repeated in the Edda poem Oddrunargråter, stanza 17, where it is the head Valkyria of 8 sisters, Brynhildur, who is the ruling power. And I quote, Brynhildur I buri, bordaraktig, haftig hon lydig och löndomsik. Brynhildur in the storage room made the embroidery of fate. She had the people and the land in her power. By the knees of the giant queen, 9 maidens are seated, all benevolent, as the Fjölsvinnsmål relates. Stanza 36, Fjölsvinnsmål. Lyfja berg dat heiter, en dat he för länge varit, sjukum och sårum gaman. Heil verder vär, dot haf I år sått, ef dat klifer kona. It is called the Mountain of Medicine, and it has long been the joy of the sick and the wounded. Healed is every woman, even from ages of sickness, if she climbs that mountain. Stanza 37. Wat där möjar heita, en för mängladar knjom, sittja sottar saman. What are the maidens called, who by the knees of Menglöd sit together in unity? Stanza 38. Liv heiter, önnur hlif thrasa, Fridja tjodvarta, björt och blid, blider frider, eir och aurboda. Translation. Life is one called, another life tracker, the third guardian of people, bright and kind, nice, peace, healing goddess, and she who bids abundance. Stanza 40. Bjarga svinnar, var män blota där, och stallhelgumstad. Eigi svå hot forad, kemer att hölda sonum, varen där ornaudum nema. They offer salvation when men sacrifice to them in a high holy place. Never is the need so great that can come to the people that they cannot remove the need. And in the Solarljud, the Song of the Sun, stanza 79, we learn that the Vanir god of winds and waves, Njörður, has 9 rune-carving daughters. These are divided into 1 elder and 1 younger, followed by a formula of 7 sisters, Systra Sjau. A formula which is repeated in another Edda poem, the Hårbardsljud, the Song of Longbeard, where the 7 sisters are described as wild and independent, yet very attractive women, who were responsible for carving the ground out of the valleys and spinning the threads of fate from out of the ocean's sands. They are associated with a mysterious linen-white woman whose love is sought, found, and then lost by Odin. The daughters of Njörður are obviously Norns, fate goddesses, who, like Norns, carve the runes of fate, and they do it in the underworld where the soul arrives after death to receive the Norna Dómur, the judgment of the Norns. It seems obvious that the poet identified Njörður with Aegir, and for good reasons. They are both lords of the ocean and the fathers of its waves. Thus, when we know that Freyja is the daughter of Njörður and that she rules the 9th world of the cosmos, where she also chooses the chosen like a head Valkyria, we may suspect that she could also be a unifying face behind the 9 sisters. In fact, next to the 9 daughters of the ocean, there is always also a giant's daughter, a singular being who possesses much the same virtues or qualities as the 9, appearing either as a grim and dangerous opponent or else as a glorious bride. As above, so below. Freyja is also the first Völva, the first witch, who is the first teacher of the art of Seidir. The Völur operated as priestesses, cunning in witchcraft and oracular divination in the Old Norse society, and they were described as traveling around the land, alone or in groups. Interestingly enough, we learn in Eirik's saga Rauda that the first Viking settlers in Greenland actually brought with them a coven of exactly 9 Völur when they left Iceland, which is a clear reference to the 9 fate powers who together gave birth to creation and the fate of the world. The formula of a group of 9 powerful priestesses who seem to be earthly incarnations of the 9 cosmic mothers may have ancient European origins. In the year 44 AD, Pomponius Mela wrote a description of the world where he mentioned Gallic oracular priestesses who held power over winds, waves, and fate. And I read from Pomponius Mela. In the Britannic Sea, opposite the coast of the Ossimi, the Isle of Sena belongs to a Gallic divinity and is famous for its oracle, whose priestesses, sanctified by their perpetual virginity, are reportedly 9 in number. They call the priestesses Gallicenae and think that because they have been endowed with unique powers, they stir up the seas and the winds by their magic charms, that they turn into whatever animals they want, that they cure whatever is incurable among other peoples, that they know and predict the future. But that is not revealed except to sea voyagers, and then only to those traveling to consult them. Now, apart from this reference to priestesses, there are also similar myths. From Greek mythology, we know about the 9 muses, who were goddesses who inspire artistic and intellectual virtues in people. There are also the 9 sisters divided into 3 trinities, the Hesperides, 3 nymphs who guard the apples of immortality, the Charities, also known as the Graces, who inspire virtues in people and who were associated with the underworld and with the Eleusinian mysteries. And then, finally, the Moirai, the 3 fates. Apparently, the 3 by 3 ladies are interconnected and sometimes referred to as the 9 daughters of Oceanus, the ocean, and thus related to our 9 daughters of Aegir, the ocean lord. The 3 Hesperides could also be known as 3 of the 9 daughters of the ancient ocean deities Phorcys and Keto, the 6 others being the 3 Gorgons and the 3 Graiai. Now, in Mircea Eliade's classic book Shamanism, Archaic Techniques of Ecstasy, we hear that a Siberian people, the Buryat, believe that a shaman is initiated by several spirit entities from other cosmic dimensions, particularly the 9 daughters of Solboni, the god of dawn. The 9 women are also the wives of Tekka, which is the god of dance, fecundity, and wealth. But nevertheless, they will initiate the fledgling shaman through what Eliade refers to as amorous relations. Another Siberian tribe, the Teleut, believe that a shaman has a celestial wife in the 7th heaven, and that he also has relations to the 9 daughters of Ulgan of the 14th heaven, who plays a major role in the shaman's initiation, since they confer his magical powers. They also arrive when a person dies in order to take the soul and carry it to heaven. This is, as we shall see, a very similar function to that of the 9 ladies of Edda lore, who are often described as Valkyriur. Okay. Giantesses carry the ages and reside within the worlds. And I read from Hrafna Galderodin's stanza 1, just a couple of sentences. eller ividja alder bära. The witch within wood brings forth the ages. The 9 daughters of the ocean and the mothers of the universe are associated with the worlds. The worlds precede the present one. The Ividja, the witch within wood, is said to carry or bring forth the ages in stanza 1 of the mysterious Edda poem Hrafnagalder Odins, the Odin's Ravengalder, as quoted above. Well, I quoted this before, above in the text. The witch within wood could well be identified as the ancient Völva who divines the story of the world in the Völusbo, a descendant or uniting power of the 9 Ividi who came before and gave birth to the present universe. They are the fate powers that carry each world, bringing forth time in space. In Old Norse myths, there is also the concept of worlds, heimir, existing simultaneously, like different dimensions to the one cosmos, or like many worlds within the one great world. The poem Grimnismål, the speech of the masked one, lists 12 such worlds or dimensions. The 9th world is ruled by Freya, who therein both chooses and receives the chosen dead. It is also the realm where she chooses the seating in the hall. The hall in question is called Folkvanger, which means people field. I assume that the meaning of the goddess choosing the seating in the people field is a way of saying that she rules the fate of human beings from her 9th cosmic realm. This is also a realm of death, where she chooses the destination for the souls after death, as if it was the Nornadomur, the judgment of the Norns, which happens after the death. According to Snorri, there are also the 3 upper realms beyond the 9th world. The first upper realm belongs to Balder, and the 2 others to the immortal light elves, who are higher even than the gods. When Snorri in the Gylfaginning claims that Hel, the goddess of the dead, rules supreme over 9 worlds, I take this to mean that the first 9 dimensions of the cosmos are mortal realms, ultimately ruled by death. The 9th of these mortal realms is the realm where some souls are chosen for immortality. The 3 higher realms, they are free from death. Now, in the Grimnismål poem, which means the song of the masked one being Odin, the 3 upper heavens after Freya's 9th world are named and described somewhat differently from Snorri's account, but there is reason to believe that the 3 upper worlds of the 2 different accounts correspond thematically with each other. Now, what kind of ocean is it that really gave birth to the mothers of the universe? During the Viking Age, Aegir and Ron and their 9 wave-stream daughters were undoubtedly perceived to be residing within all earthly oceans. But in Norse mythology, every earthly phenomenon has a cosmic mold. The body of the ocean, that is Aegir, and his death-receiving wife, Ron, who resides within him, within the ocean, birthing their daughters. They are ultimately the cosmic ocean from which the world tree sprouted. That heaven and the cosmos were associated with a primeval cosmic ocean is probably a very ancient concept. Rock carvings dating back to the Scandinavian Stone Age show images of a world tree along with other symbols of the universe such as spirals sailing on ships on the ocean. So we have depictions of the world tree actually being aboard a ship on the ocean. From the Bronze Age, similar carvings show the sun goddess frequently traveling by ship through the heavens. So the symbolic journey by ship across a mythical ocean is also associated with the journey between life and death, well into the Viking Age. It seems very safe to say that the origin of the universe, long before the existence of Earth and her oceans, was imagined as an ocean since time immemorial. You look up there to the sky and there is an ocean up there. A symbolic ocean, of course. Now, in the Völuspå, stanza 19, it is revealed that there is a sea beneath the ash, and this sea is identified as a water source, the Urdarbrunnr, the well of origin. It is from this water that the ash tree, which is the universe, sprouts. The ocean births the Norns, the goddesses of fate. The fate goddesses emerge according to stanza 20 of the same poem, Ur deim sal und þolli stendur, from that hall which stands beneath the tree. Right. The seed of Yggdrasill. And here I quote again from Rafnagaldir Odin's raven charm, stanza 6, the Poetic Edda. Dveler I daulom, dis forvitin, Yggdrasills frå, aski hnigin, alfa ettar, idun I heto, Ivalds elri, yngsta barni. There dwells in the valleys a knowledge-seeking goddess. The seed of Yggdrasill sinks down the ash. She is of elf lineage. Her name is Stream Returns to Source, the oldest of the inner ruler, the youngest child. The existence of an unseen, feminine, moving power working within the masculine holding power, that is, holding together a seen and physical aspect, is a concept repeated time and time again in Norse myths. On the human level, we will see that each human being, no matter the gender, has a female fate spinner within. In the poem Rafnagaldir Odin, stanza 6, we hear that Yggdrasill, the world tree, the universe, has a seed, Yggdrasill's frå, and that she is a knowledge-seeking goddess, a dis forvitin. So yeah, that's where the title, the seed of Yggdrasill, is taken from. Frå Yggdrasills, from the seed of Yggdrasill, from the Odin's raven charm. And it refers to Eden, the goddess of learning and intelligence and eternal resurrection, leading to a sort of immortality. Now, a seed is both a cause and a result of a tree. The tree represents the physical universe and all lesser physical bodies. So the goddess in question could be the seed of life, the life potential that has produced and also is produced by the universal body. This seed of the world tree sinks down the ash, aski hnigin. Yggdrasills frå, aski hnigin. The seed of Yggdrasil sinks down the ash. And this gives perhaps the impression that she is slowly making her way down through the universe and back to the source that gave birth to her, hence her name. The knowledge-seeking seed of the universe is subsequently identified as being of alfa ætter, of elf lineage. The elf in Norse mythology, now there is a difference between the Norse mythological poetry and folklore. Of course, in folklore, the elves are sort of beings that exist of their own accord. But everything and anything can be used as poetical metaphors in Old Norse poetry. That's how it works. That's how Skaldskap works. So that when we see elves in the poems, the Edda poems, then this is usually a symbol of the soul of a person. So that the correct interpretation is to say that she is of soul kind. She is then identified as Idun, the goddess of eternal resurrection. The name Idun is derived from the word Ider, a feminine singular word which means a stream that separates from the main stream and returns to the water source. In English, there is a related word, eddy, which is the sort of whirlpool that is created in a river when a stream sort of turns, a stream within the water turns. I actually saw this just this week. I was visiting Romsdal. Romsdal is a place in Norway that is the name is derived from the river Rauma, which was the name of a goddess and who was the sort of the ancestral mother of the Rauma Valley people, the Romsdal people. This river is amazingly beautiful, and I even bathed in it, and it held less than 10 degrees Celsius. So it was cold, but it was irresistible because it was so crystallic and pristine and beautiful. So I just had to bathe, and I bathed there 9 times over the course of 3 days. Which has nothing to do with it. But this river was very interesting. It was very, very interesting because it had eddies. It had a lot of eddies. It was streaming from somewhere, basically from the west to the east, and sometimes this little stream suddenly turned around to go back to the source, and then you could see these little eddies, these little whirlpools in the water. So, now seeing the importance of water sources and streams as symbols of primeval creative powers, this makes a lot of sense. The realm of the immortals is significantly known as the Idavellir, the fields of the whirlpool streams that return to the source. Now, the un ending in Idun's name is quite like the in ending in Odin's name, indicating that she is the stream that returns to the source. It's the determined form of the word. The stanza about the seed of Yggdrasill culminates in the revelation that the soul goddess, or the elfin goddess, the knowledge-seeking seed of the universe, is both the youngest and the oldest child of Ivaldi. And Ivaldi means, directly translated, the inner ruler. So there is an inner ruler, a ruler within. And she is both his youngest and his oldest daughter. This reminds us of the 9 daughters of Njörður, Lord of the winds and the waves, where only his oldest and his youngest are named. The meaning of their names, Rådveigur, which means council drink, is the oldest, and Kreppvör, which means returning spring, is the youngest. Well, these give clear associations to the oldest Norn, Urdur, origin, whose well of origin is both the place where divine councils take place and the water with which she gives nourishment to the world tree, and to the youngest Norn, Skuld, which means depth, who represents the future and new beginnings. Her name actually means depth, skuld. That's when you owe something. She is what the future owes you. It should be clear now that the Norse myths subtly reveal the existence of a hidden, soul-like fate element, an animating and nourishing power existing within the physical universe. She is its source and its seed, the beginning and the end, mother and daughter of the world itself. She is the witch within wood, and each world before this one has had a similar witch within, the mothers of our world. The concept of the within wood giantesses strongly suggests that the 9 mothers have existed within 9 previous worlds, which is possibly the reason why they are thought to be exactly 9 in number. Oh, and here I have something. Curiously enough, the modern theory of vortex math offers a very interesting perspective to these mythical concepts. I had actually forgotten about this part, so I haven't actually checked what people nowadays think about vortex math, but it was very interesting. According to this revolutionary mathematical theory, a vortex of physical creative energy is produced through the interaction of exactly 9 points working in unison. As far as I have understood, this is the basic cause of the universe itself, according to the theory, of course. To suggest that the 9 mothers of the universe have anything to do with an archaic version of vortex mathematics is of course highly speculative, although we may assume that people back in the days had their geniuses just as we do today. Now, I will not claim that it is so, but it is just too interesting not to mention in this context. Vortexes aside, we are starting to see a pattern where a male entity provides the physical and the seen body, while the female entity provides the unseen and non-physical spark of life and the movement of fate within the body. And this is the basic poetical mold for all mythical entities. Thus, we can begin to look back at the first beings of the previous section. If the Völva, who tells the tale of the world from beginning to end, is raised among the 9 world giantesses who preceded and gave birth to the present one, and living within the matter of the previous physical universes, then she might also be the witch within the wood of the present world tree. And just as the cow, Audhumbla, is the unseen cause of movement and expansion in the present physical universe called Ymir. And now it is time to have a look at what the name Ymir really means. So, just a bit of water. Thank you for being here, Konrad. I'm very happy about that. Makes me feel less on my own here. Chapter 2.4. In the beginning was the wave and a big bang, the first cosmic giants. I actually had some drawings here. It's a bit hard to show. I was actually comparing vortex mathematic symbol with the Valknuter, which also has 9 points. It's like 3 pyramids going together. Maybe if I do like this, you can see the Valknuter here, and here is a modern representation of vortex mathematics. And here is something from the Iron Age, the 3rd century, ornament from Birkenes showing a spirally design, which is very common going back all the way to the Bronze Ages. Right. 2.4. And I read from Völusbo, stanza 3, the Poetic Edda. År var alda, där Ymir byggde, våra sander ne sär, ne svalar under. Jörd fansk äva, ne upphimin. Gap var Gynunga, en gras vergi. And my translation, which is very controversial, the first line is very controversial, but I'm gonna do it anyway. In the beginning was the wave, where sound built. There was neither sand nor sea, nor cool little waves. Earth was not, nor heaven above. The mouth of the sacred descendants was, yet no growth. Now the Old Norse formula, År var alda, is apparently very complicated and usually refers to what was before, in the beginning. All the translations I have read offer slightly different variations. In Caroline Larrington's English translation of 1996, the interpretation is young were the years. Ivar Mortensen Egnund's Norwegian translation from 1905 goes årlig i old, which means early in the old days. Whereas Ludvig Holm Olsen's Norwegian translation from 1975 is i opphavstider, in the times of origin. In his English translation of the Prose Edda, where the sentence is quoted, Anthony Fawkes, in 1987, suggested that it meant it was in the beginning of time. Ermin Vinson, basing his English translation on Neckel and Kuhn's German edition, simply writes years ago. There are countless small variations, all emphasizing the basic meaning that this was something that happened a long time ago or even at the beginning of time. Excuse me. However, none of the translations are exactly the same, simply because none of them are a literal translation of the sentence. Rather than translate the sentence literally, one chooses from a variety of traditional understandings and opts for paraphrasing it into a more modern and entirely free rendering, like in the beginning, in olden times, or the years were young, or some of the other versions I just mentioned. The reason for this, I believe, is that if translated literally, the sentence år var alda just does not really make that much sense, grammatically speaking. Now, it has been explained to me that år means year, and alda is the adjective form of alder, the genitive form, I suppose, of alder, age, which means years were old, or years belonged to the ages, or, well, basically a long time ago, in the beginning. Now, this is a good description of the common understanding of the sentence. The literal translation is thought to be years were old, or in the beginning of the ages, and is then paraphrased into something that sounds more accessible to moderns. However, if the plural years were old, I wonder why the verb form var is applied. Because if the years were, the plural years were, we should have seen an Old Norse år varu. So the correct translation, if we are to understand the word år as the neutral noun meaning year, ought to be that the singular year was old or belonged to the ages. However, we then face the problem of the adjective form alda, which can only take that form if it is referring to or describing a plural noun. Now, I understand that Orvaralda is basically understood to mean in the beginning of time or something like that. And it could be, I will be humble enough to say that this could be, of course, correct. Alda could refer, for example, we have this term for Odin, Alda Fadir, which means the father of the ages. So Alda could refer to the ages. Again, we have this problem with the plural and the singular forms of the verb var, because var is a singular form of the verb. Now, so I made up my own little theory. I might be wrong, I will admit that, but I think it's worth discussing anyway, because even if there is a tradition of understanding this sentence as in the beginning of time, there might have been a different meaning before, earlier, and we can perhaps find that. So yeah, I quickly found that the word or may mean year if it is a neutral noun, but it could also mean an or if it is a feminine noun, and that as an adverb it means before or in the beginning. I remembered obsessing over this sentence when I studied Old Norse at the university, and I remembered that one of my Old Norse professors pointed out that the sentence was usually translated with in the beginning, because or was an adverb, but then the word year is lost. And we have a really weird sentence, something like before was aged. And I remember my professor just shaking his head as I pointed this out, asserting strongly that discussion is futile. This is what the sentence meant, and that is final. However, I am too much of a rebel to just blindly accept that kind of an argument, and continue to fret over it until once more a meaning appeared like a revelation, opening up fantastic possibilities. So again, I will admit that this could be, I could be wrong, but as an adverb, or means before, while var means was. And this indicates a singular thing that was before. Then it follows that the word alda is the noun that was before. Looking up the word alda as a noun, I found the feminine noun meaning wave, as in a big wave. As we know, there are lots of different words for waves. Alda could mean a huge wave. I wrote my translation down for the first time, a direct literal translation as I understood it, based on the idea that or should be understood as the adverb. And then I arrived at or in the beginning, var was alda, the wave, or literally before or in the beginning was the wave. Maybe others have tried the same and dismissed the literal meaning of alda as impossible, but I immediately recognized that this was completely in tune with the general importance of waves and streams in the Old Norse mythical creation. I am aware that my interpretation is rather controversial and at odds with what all other translators have decided before me. And I'm not going to say that they are not good translators, but sometimes we do translate based on how we are used to translating it, how we are used to seeing it. And I am aware that the expression Orvaralda has been a fixed expression for a long time, meaning something like back in the olden days. And that the noun or could be understood as plural, and that the verb might have been shaped relative to the intent or the context, although I have a hard time understanding the latter. I am aware that I could be wrong when I suggest that I have discovered an original meaning of the sentence, a meaning that may have been long forgotten simply because people have not understood the essential importance of waves as symbols of cosmic energy movements essential to creation. However, I can claim this. My interpretation is fundamentally correct if we look for a simple, direct, non-paraphrased translation. If you look for one where the grammar actually makes sense, well, to me, no one can tell me that the sentence Or var Alda cannot possibly be translated directly as Or in the beginning. Var was an Alda, a feminine singular word for wave. The only real argument against my translation is the tradition of translating it otherwise. There have been countless traditional misinterpretations of many phenomena throughout this world's history. So you do not have to agree with my interpretation of the sentence Or Varalda in order to continue reading and appreciating my approach to Norse cosmology as a whole. But I believe that my unusual interpretation fits well and provides an even deeper insight into the minds of our ancestors. Alda, as a feminine noun, actually means a wave, a meaning that makes sense because waves, rivers, and streams were very important parts of the primeval forces of the cosmos. And now, Vikings. I used this term a lot, didn't I? Pre-Christian Scandinavians. They were a seafaring folk, and they had many different words for waves. Alda is a big wave, and there were many other kinds of waves, such as the little waves, the under, a feminine plural word. Because later on in the same stanza, we are told first that, as opposed to the big wave at the beginning, there were no little waves, ne svalar under, no cool little waves. So there was a big wave, but no small waves yet, just a big singular wave. Now, what are waves, metaphorically speaking? What are streams and what are rivers if they are to be understood as poetical metaphors? I would suggest that waves, rivers, and streams simply represent a wavy movement, as in a vibration. And this brings us on to the next line in the stanza. År var Alda, där Ymir byggde. Now, we usually translate this sentence as that place where Ymir built. Dar means that place where. And it is referring to the big wave of the previous line, so that it is happening within the big wave. Ymir, inside a big wave, is building. The next question is, what is Ymir? Of course, we can look to what Snorri Sturluson says about Ymir. Snorri explained that Ymir was a giant, a Jötun, the first of all Jötnar, all giants. And this Jötun was created by hot and cold streams that met and interacted within the Ginnunga gap. Ymir was nurtured and made to grow as he drank milk from the 4 streams coming out of the teats of the great cosmic cow, Audhumbla, whose name means something like abundant brew ingredient, the primal active force in the universe. Snorri also tells us that this same cow, through her actions, also ultimately brought forth Odin and his 2 brothers. These 3 represent spirit, conscious intelligence, and poetry. And these divine powers killed Ymir and cut him into little pieces. And from his cut limbs, They shaped the universe. We do not have to look further than an Old Norse dictionary to find that Ymir must be derived from the masculine noun Ymir, which means an uttering. In Norwegian we have a word ymte, which means to say something, like you suggest something, you start to speak but a little bit low, an uttering, a sound, a voice. So inside the big wave, a big sound, an uttering, a voice was building, growing. It is becoming tempting to ask, did these people know about sound waves? Because this voice, this sound, is actually growing within the Alda, the wave. Maybe they did. It also makes sense out of the story of these three gods killing and cutting this giant into pieces, because if a sound, a big, primeval, unified, singular sound of the universe is cut into pieces, it means something like that this big, primeval, singular sound of the universe is cut into countless tunes, an orchestra of tunes that make up the universe. The Aesir are, after all, known as the Hljóðasmiðir, the songsmiths. When we read a story like this, it ceases to be a funny fairy tale about giants, cows, and heroic gods. It transcends what we usually understand to be mythology. This is philosophy. This is metaphysics. And it is not even far-fetched to assume so, if seen in connection to other ancient traditions such as the Vedas and several classical religious philosophical trends. When fortresses burst in the grove of bright shine. And I read again. Now I read from another Edda poem, which sounds a little bit similar, this verse anyway. It's from the first stanza in the poem Hunningsbani, hin fyrri. And I read. Orvaralda, that arar gullo, henigo heilog votten af himin fjöllum. Då hafti Helga in hugom stora, Borghilder borit I Brålundi. Translation. In the beginning was the wave, when the eagles shrieked, and sacred water poured down the mountains of heaven. Then was the sacred one, of powerful intent, born to fortress battle in the grove of bright shine. Yeah, when fortresses burst in the grove of bright shine, there was water pouring down, there were eagles shrieking. The first stanza in the Edda poem Helgakvidia Hunningsbani hin fyrri, as quoted just now, is an obvious reference to the creation stanza in the Völuspår with some slight alterations. The great sound giant, Ymir, is replaced here with the shrieks of eagles. The eagle is an important symbol of the original cosmic power. According to Snorri, an eagle is seated in the top of the world tree, receiving tidings, like news, information, from the serpent that lies coiled at the roots of the tree through the squirrel-like messenger called Ratatöskur, which means the wandering container, from the verb rata, to wander or travel or move, and the noun töskur, which means bag or purse, something that contains something else. In this case, tidings, information. The eagle is also mentioned as a power of death in the shape of the giant in eagle disguise, Hræsvelgir, whose name means corpse swallower. He creates the mysterious winds of the cosmos that may not be seen by human eyes, winds that ultimately bring the souls of the living back into his devouring beak. The symbol of the death eagle is very prominent in the myths, and is a subject that we will return to on several occasions, especially in chapter 4, and then in a more in-depth study in chapter 13. For now, it should be noted that this creator of winds and waves is functionally identical to the ocean giant Aegir, who steers the winds and waves, as well as the god Njörður, who steers the winds from his ship's harbour in the 11th dimension of the cosmos. The poem of Helgi elevates a human hero to the position of a first being, probably a way of letting us know that his story and his actions are relevant on a cosmic level, a story that basically is about the universe and ultimately about us all. Significantly, Helgi, whose name means the sacred one, the holy, undergoes a trial of initiation where he needs to overcome giants and other obstacles that symbolize hatred, anger, fear, and greed. The first lines of his poem, however, also give an insight into alternative ways of describing cosmic creation. To sum it up, we have a wave, a shrilling sound, and streaming liquid pouring into the primeval cosmos. The physical universe, the sacred one, is born from a symbolic mother, an unseen cause, whose name indicates a violent battle within an enclosed space, a fortress. All this happening in an enclosed place, the grove of intense, bright shining. It is almost chilling to read such an account, written down in the Middle Ages, and probably recounting that of a much older origin, nurtured by a relatively primitive Iron Age culture, an account which, although using poetical terms, seems to be accurately describing the Big Bang that contemporary scientists believe to be the origin of our universe. The resemblance to modern scientific theory is blended with mythical concepts of fate and the weave of threads that make fate happen. The following will show that the fate goddesses and their threads are closely related to the unseen streams and waves that gave birth to the cosmos. After the birth of the cosmic sacred one, the giantesses of fate that we discussed earlier arrive on the cosmic scene, this time in the shape of Norns. As such, they begin to weave the threads of fate from the very beginning, when all was still dark, as we see in stanza 2 to 4 of the first Helgi poem. Stanza 2. Natt var thi bo, nornir komo, there Ynglinga aldrumskopo. There was night in the settlement. The fates arrived. To the descendant of abundance did they shape time. Snero derav affli, årlöv tatto, då borgerbraut I brålundi. Derum greido gullin simo, und månasal midjan festo. Der auster och väster ända falu, där 80 loftunger land amilli, bra nipt nära, och norderväga, eini festi, öj bad hon halda. They twisted with great power the threads of fate. When fortresses burst in the grove of bright shine, they prepared the golden thread of divine fate, and beneath the hall of the moon, Månasal, that is the earth, they fastened it in the middle. To the east and the west they secured its ends. The high descendant should own the land in between. The bright shining kinswoman of the woman beneath hurled towards the northern path one end, fastening it there. She bid it to hold forever. The account given here clearly identifies Helgi with the male first cosmic being and reveals to us the workings of the Fates, which seem to be hurling, throwing, fastening and twisting the threads of fate throughout the universe. Knowing that the giantesses are also associated with cosmic waves, streams and glowing lights, we may begin to grasp the true complexity of what fate and what the weaving and the spinning of fate really meant to those who were initiated into the deeper mysteries of the Viking Age religion. In the middle of the great weave, born of the shining grove where fortresses burst, the descendant can rule his halls. The descendant is clearly a reference to the son of the giantesses, the world. When he is called the descendant of abundance, it may be a reference to the cow abundant brew ingredient, audhumla, or simply to the fact that he is the descendant of previous worlds. He is the very embodiment of the present world and also represents the cosmic mold for all living beings. Stanza 5 of the same poem reveals that neither the mother nor the son in the primeval cosmos knew of any grievances. It was a happy and powerful time. The son is called the dear one, and the maiden who gave birth to him has never known suffering. Then a cryptic remark follows, one about a raven sitting in a high tree hoping for food, saying to his companion, another raven, that he knows something. The ravens are otherwise known as Odin's two ravens, Hugin and Munin, whose names indicate what they truly represent. Hugin means the thought or the intent, and Munin means the memory. These are the first sparks of consciousness in the new universe. Now they are hoping for food, hoping for nourishment in this new world. The nourishment in question is that which may promote the continued life of the conscious powers. The ravens who says to the other that he knows something continues by declaring that the newly born has eyes like a fighter and that he is a friend of wolves, concluding that the ravens of consciousness ought to be cheerful. The wolf is usually in Norse poetry a symbol of desire, lust for life, life spark, and also the hunting and the death that follows. Thus the newly born universe is a friend of desire and lust, the very nourishment for consciousness. You can imagine the raven and the wolf. The raven often follow the wolves to eat their prey, basically, and they seem to be good friends. This is probably an observation behind this poetical metaphor. The Helgi poem soon begins to concentrate on the human hero story, but the beginning of the poem is a valuable yet usually ignored source to the Old Norse cosmos genesis. The birth of consciousness will be dealt with more closely in the next chapter, but for now we shall continue to look at the primeval streams and sounds that made the young universe grow. All right. I think I'll have to finish here at this point because I'm going to look at the questions. I see there have some questions here. So I'm gonna look at these. Let's see. How do you understand the word heimu? Heimu. Well, heim means world in Old Norse. I'm wondering in exactly what context you are referring to, but heimir, heim. There are many different grammatical forms of the word, but it basically means it's related to English home and modern Norwegian hjem or heim, which means a home or a settlement where people live, but it also means, basically it means a world. In the Old Norse language, you could talk about heimir as different countries, for example, or different realms, or different dimensions of cosmos, and the worlds of the gods. All these are heimir, homes, worlds, basically, because they are always homes to someone or something. Next question is apropos alpha. Okay, you are talking about, I'm gonna do this in English, I see you write in Swedish here. I have to reply in English because this is going to be recorded for English speaking, well, for everyone. So you have some thoughts here about connections to Sanskrit. Yeah, there are many different, many similarities. Yeah, I agree. There are many similarities between both Norse mythology and the old Vedic, old Indian mythology. There are lots of parallels and thematic similarities. And also the languages are, of course, we know that they are related. They belong to the same family. And that there are different levels of, yeah. Okay. The way you read the Nordic creation as a differentiation process described as sound is not only in accordance with many others, as the yogic spanda, basic vibration, skälvande, but also offers it new and beautiful nuances, the non-dual mystically talent shape as a dual perception, thus understanding and allowing the poetic force and ability of a pivotal and central role. Right, do you see Völuspå relate to the inner or outer world, or do you perceive the old Nordic tradition as basically referring to the microcosmos and macrocosmos as one and the same? I would say that, well, we're going to get back to that in the book, but yeah, I definitely think that there are, when we read the myths, we have I usually find like 3 different levels. Like, for example, take the world tree. The world tree can mean the body of the entire universe. Then the world tree can also refer to Earth, it seems, in the and it can also refer to the human body. It is of significance that the world tree is an asker. Asker is also the name for the first human man, and there are many parallels between this. We're going to get back to this next time when I speak about the world tree. There are many similarities to, for example, the tantric tradition in India. The notion, and also it seems to describe the human nervous system, the way this wandering container runs up and down the tree trunk to the snake coiled below and to the eagle sitting in the top, and exchanging information through this tree. And also humans can always be referred in poetry as trees. tree sorts. The ash, the asker, is only one a tree that can refer to a man, and there are also female trees that can refer to women, and this is frequently used in Old Norse poetry. You do find lots of reasons to believe that the tree, the world tree, is also a description of the human body. So I see the Völuspá as both a story about the entire universe, a story about the human experience as such, and also something that definitely happens within us. We all have our own little Ragnarok coming. Let's see. Could it be that Hugin and Munin are aspects of the lower mind that scavenges on what is not yet real, and thought that creates suffering? I haven't thought about that, and I have to say that the concept of lower and higher in Old Norse myth is, it doesn't seem to be as dualistic to me. It doesn't seem to actually have this sort of hierarchy between what is high and what is low. That seems to have been something that developed in India and in many other Eastern mythologies or philosophies or religious trends. This notion that the body and the physical is sort of lower and separate from the spiritual is also something we find in European traditions going back to the Greeks, but it doesn't seem to be the case in Old Norse mythology. I think like the as above, so below, and as outside, so within. Everything contains. We all have, as I think, we all have these gods and goddesses and giants and giantesses. All these beings are aspects of existence as such. They exist both on a natural level, a cosmic level, and also inside within us. That's what I think. So no, I don't think that they are aspects of the lower mind. I think they basically mean the force, the power of the thought, the intent, and of the memory that can be sent out into the world and by someone like Odin, and return with these so-called tidings, much like the squirrel Ratatoskr returns and brings the tidings between the different parts of the cosmos. Now, let's see, can I see more here? All right. Did I reply to everything you asked? No. I'm going to give you a little bit of time because there seems to be a time delay in this internet process. So I'm just going to give you a couple of minutes. All right, Conrad, if you have more questions, just leave them there. I will come back to them next time. Next Sunday, I cannot be doing the live stream, which is sad, but I will be doing it the Sunday after. So thank you for watching. Have a nice evening or day, if because this is going to be recorded and given to everybody. So have a nice day, evening, night, morning, whatever. Hope you enjoyed it. Thank you.